Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. We are just 8 days away from the 1 in 36 Mixed Virtual Autism Summit, August 11th and 12th, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. It is going to be an amazing event full of celebrities, advocates, live podcasts, music performances, and I want to give a shout out to my two amazing co-hosts this year. We have Rachel Harmons with the Global Autism Project. You can find her on Instagram, Autism Podcast, and Autism Knows No Borders Podcast. And because the lovely Rachel lives all the way in Spain, we are going to relieve her evening sessions with another co-host by the name of Danielle Terrell. Danielle is also a global advocate and speaker. And let me tell you, both of these ladies are professional, kind, inspiring, and they are doing so much good for the community. So, what are you waiting for? Head on over, go get your tickets now. The 1 in 36 Mixed Virtual Autism Summit. Contact me for scholarship tickets for families or yourself. Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation today, and I know you guys are going to enjoy it as well. I am here with Ryann Watkin, and I hope I pronounced it all. Is it Ryann? Ryan? Okay, perfect. I'm like, just at the last second, crap, what if I just said it wrong, right?
Totally.
The way my day goes. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I, was really excited when I saw the topics and the work that you do. And it's something that is very fulfilling and wonderful for my audience. So without further ado, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ryann, pronounced like the boy name. I have an extra N on the end, which I always say makes it a little girly. First day of school, always like growing up, the teachers were like, Ryann. So I'm super used to the different pronunciations. So yes, Ryann, like the boy's name. I'm a mom of 3 amazing, diverse, spunky children. I'm a wife. I am an educator, and I'm a podcast host. My podcast is the Raising Wild Hearts podcast, and I have a long history of education. I love social emotional learning, and I learn about it for myself, and then I put it into practice for my family. And this journey all started about 10 years ago when I turned 30. So I just turned 40, and I've had a decade of self-discovery and integrating different aspects of personal development and spirituality into my life. And so really I'm saying all the time, like, we can change the world by starting at home in our own minds and hearts. And that—
Are you my doppelganger? I'm just kidding. I'm like, wait, she's telling my stories. Just
Don't you love that when you just have that connection, the synchronicity? Yes,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I felt it when I read through your things and stuff, and I felt it right away when I reached out to you. So I love that. Tell us about the a little bit more on how it got you onto the journey where you're at today.
Sure. So it's like you try to pinpoint like where the journey started. And for me, it always starts in the darkest moments. We joked before we jumped on, like, the shadows. And I think that so much light can come from the shadows, because what we ultimately realize is that it was never a shadow in the first place. It was just something that was getting in the way of the light. Right. So for me, it really started on a boat when I was about 6 months postpartum, and I had an acute panic attack. And after a few days of not being able to sleep, it was really borderline psychosis. And it was kind of a rock bottom for me in that moment. I can talk about it now because of all the healing I've done around it. I felt so unsafe in my body. I was leaving my daughter for the first time. I was breastfeeding. And I just had this overwhelming sense of like, I'm going to die. And it was a combination of not being with her and old childhood wounds coming up, attachment wounds. And that really began my search of like, what is this? And that led me to becoming really, really honest with myself of like, what do I really need to look at and take an honest inventory? What addictions, what coping mechanisms, what am I leaning on that's not healthy for my life right now? And how am I going to not pass this down to my child? At that time, it was just, I just had my first, she was 6 months old. And so really since then, I've been on a relentless pursuit of self-discovery and really healing this intergenerational trauma piece, because I refuse to pass this baggage down to my daughters and my son.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And sometimes that's where we get the most strength is from those moments. I think as a parent, this is perfect for our purposeful parenting series, that it starts with you. It starts with you. It starts inside you and within your thoughts and in your mind. And when you decide to create a life of, success, whatever your idea of success for your family is, not in your own career, things like that, that's where your journey begins. And hopefully you start to seek out ways to do that. What are some things that you did to seek out some ways to find those truths to connect with?
Yeah, I love that. So I'm a journaler. I love getting the words down on the paper. I love verbally processing. I mean, having conversations with people, and then community too. Like, so when my daughter turned a year, this was after a little bit of healing I had done, I found this wonderful, rich, diverse spiritual group of moms who had kids around the same age. I was pregnant at that time with my second, and we were just able to sit down and talk about, man, this is hard. Nobody tells you how hard this would be. I used to say, like, somebody should take you aside at the baby shower, or maybe even before that, maybe at the wedding, and say, like, hey, you're in for a ride. And maybe nobody would do it then. But so, yeah, I really found this community and this solace in talking to other moms in the same situation as me. And, lifting that veil of shame and being able to talk about, like, I know this is supposed to be really joyous, and it also really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you embrace the suck, sometimes you really, well, not even sometimes, you grow from that. That is where the growth comes in, isn't it? Because when you're comfortable, there's nothing you're free, you're moving right along. I just said it to my friend yesterday. He said, how are things going? And I was like, oh, a little boring. And I went, oh, great. I just jinxed myself. No longer will it be boring.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The universe will always lend you a learning lesson. Well, you really do manifest. And, if you take anything away from this podcast, embrace the suck. I mean, if that's not the best like one line, I don't know. Because we do have to just we have to accept, we've been, Disney movies and the culture, the way we get, conditioned. It's like there's good and there's bad. But really, like, we're striving to, or we can strive to find this place of neutrality. So if it's raining outside, is that good or bad? No, it's just neutral unless you make it mean something in your mind because you had a beach day planned, because your kids had a soccer game, whatever it is. So like, we really need to take a look at the meaning. So that's another first thing I did is I realized all the shitty thoughts I was feeding myself, and I wasn't even feeding myself. I mean, they were automatic. Like we think like 80,000 plus thoughts a day. And a lot of those dictate our emotions and how we're feeling. And so it's this cycle. It's just this like little wheel of like thoughts, emotions, and then habits, like, because you're going to take action on how you're feeling. So if you're feeling depressed, like maybe you're going to sit down on the couch and like talk about how depressed you are. Or, if you're feeling kind of calm and aware, maybe you'll go for a walk because you feel pretty frustrated, but you know that if you just get outside and have some sunshine on your face, that you'll probably feel just a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I hate to admit that. I'm always my daughter, oh, we go for a walk. I don't feel like it. And then we get out there and I'm like, make me do this. I love this. Why did I say no in the first place?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like reality check. You have to force yourself out of even in good moments. Sometimes you have to force yourself to move and to pivot into other places so that you can continue learning, continue growing, continue to be better. Even and it's so funny. A podcast I just aired today, the lady said 1% better a day. If that's all you can do, that's the best. That's perfect. And I love that. That's not like, oh, that's so much change. How am I going to do this? And I like what you said about journaling too, because it's so important to be able to measure and to look back and see where you started, where you came from, because in that you also take away some information and some knowledge and some wisdom to take with you into your next situation ships with everything, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So where did now you're working as you said in education. Where did that start and when did when you decide to take that route?
So I was like 5. It just, how they say you're like, you can tell what you're going to be when you're a little kid. And so I was playing school with my grandma and I was like up at the front, like teaching her, like, whatever lesson it was for the day. And she was goofing off. She was like kind of a class clown. And I said, if you're not going to take this serious, Miss Ruth, her name is Ruth. If you're not going to take this serious, Ruth, then you're going to have to leave the classroom. And, like we joke about it because I was like so dedicated. And of course, I've done some work on, conflict resolution and conscious discipline since then. But I've always really been drawn to education. I've always been an avid reader. I was the kid in front of my kindergarten class reading the books to the other kids. So I've always just kind of had it in my bones. As luck would have it, as the universe would present, my first job out of college was in education. I helped at-risk youth. Plan for their careers once graduating from a Job Corps program. And gosh, I'll tell you what, in my early 20s, that was such a beautiful experience. The array of people I met, the hearts of the people, and these are kids who were considered bad kids. These were kids who dropped out of high school, who got kicked out of high school, and who didn't have anywhere else to go. And so here I am, fresh out of college, like just total newbie. And I learned so much there just from the people I was supposed to be helping.
Yeah.
Right. I learned so much about life and career and success. And so then, my path meandered into a number of different ways. I dipped my toe in education for about 4 or 5 years, higher education, in a university admissions office. And that was also super fascinating. And then I became a homeschooling mom. So I homeschooled my older 2 for a couple years. And that was when, it's so funny, I looked back on a journal entry, and it was about a year or 2 prior, and it said, I am an educator. I am a teacher. And then I found myself in this, like plopped in this homeschool experience and just, plopped in, but really like all out of the great design. And I thought, gosh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And it was very challenging. And I learned a ton too, of course, from my children. They're my best teachers. They're my greatest mirrors.
100%.
And so I realized like, oh, I'm an educator. Like it only took me, 35 years to actually figure it out.
To act on it. Yeah, right?
Yeah, totally.
I love that. Yeah.
And so everything I do now is through that lens. So no matter what you do, no matter what your roles are, mother, educator, lawyer, insert title here, like no matter what you do, if you have that North Star, that value within you, every single thing you do in your life can be done through that lens. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic. So when you decided to, apply all of this to, education and to parenting, what did that look like with your relationship with your kids?
I love that. So it's interesting because I just had Dr. Danny Brissell on my podcast, and
I just released his episode a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago. Yes.
Cool. This is perfect then. So, and we talked about a lot about education, a lot about like, state standards or like how when should children be reading, and, these like different like formalities that the systems pass down to us. Right. And it took me a while, and I'm still learning to unlearn the system that I grew up in. And that translates to my home as well. I mean, when my older daughter was first born and a toddler, I was very authoritarian. Like, you do this or this. It was very like, punishment, reward, punishment, reward. And then just like organically, I found, conscious discipline. I found gentle parenting. I found the choice method. I found all these different things. And you don't even need to put a name on it. But I found my heart, like what didn't feel right in my heart, or what didn't feel right maybe in my mind and my heart. I aligned it into my heart and how I will talk to my kids. I mean, how I speak to them, how I ask them to do something, how I ask how their day was, how I look them in the eye when they're telling me a story, even if it's something they've told me before, even if I'm cooking dinner. And this isn't about striving for perfection, but it's about how do our kids learn? And that's one of the things that Dr. Danny Brissell said, is that, one of his biggest takeaways from being in the classroom for a number of years was that if he had 36 kids in that class, he had 36 different learning styles to cater to. And so I've got 3 kids. I've got 3 different learning styles to cater to.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely. I have 3 as well. And they couldn't be any different from one another, right?
It's wild.
So very different. And each come with their own challenges and strengths and quirks and everything is so diverse. And when we really take a step back and look at our entire world and our entire existence, that's always what we have been, is so diverse. We've never been the same person. We've never came out, yes, twins look alike, but they're still so very different, vastly different. And so I think it's really funny that we have to remind society, be nice and be diverse. It's okay. And it's like, hello, remember where you've been. Remember where you've come from. Take a look back. Like, it's not that like nuanced,
right? It's baked into
funny.
Humanity. Yes,
exactly. And so I find that just kind of funny, ironic that it is, that we keep having to remind people like it's okay. And everybody is, especially with our kids, it's when they realize like the importance of their differences make them special, and they're all special. There's nobody one special over another kind of thing. Everyone is unique because that's what they are, unique. So it's just like this funny, it's like a joke, this funny joke that life's playing on everyone, that it's like, I'm making you all different. You can be all upset about how different you are, but how it makes you feel so different, but you're different. Right. It's like,
totally.
It's a
That's
mess.
what spiritual teacher Ram Dass would call the cosmic giggle. I always like because like it's the little cosmic giggle. It's like, haha, we gotcha. This is like all part of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so neat that we got to make these connections like with you. And I want to hear about your podcast. I want to talk about that and how that came to be, and the sounds like you have some great guests, of course, too. So what kind of journey has that been?
Oh, I love that, because I started my podcast in 2019, and it was originally called The Happy Mom Show. And what I was doing, and I was busting this myth of happiness, that happiness is not this like, this constant steady state, right? That like a happy, thriving life is made up of the full spectrum of emotions. It's made up of really big challenges. It's made up of the highest, blissful highs. And it's all of those things together. We can make a happy, thriving life from that. So that was my original goal, to set out to like, crush this like myth that we have in our culture of like, I'll be happy when, or, they're happy because look at their social media feed. And I really, in 2020, my girls' school shut down. I didn't have my 3rd yet. And my kids came home, and I ended up homeschooling at that time. And then I tried to kind of do both. And I remember like having a meeting, and it was a video meeting. It might have even been like a Facebook Live. And my kids are in the background like, Mom, we need snacks. And I'm like, all right, universe, it's fine. It's just time. It's time to put a pause on it. So I put a pause on it. I took a sabbatical. I did a lot of different things, including but not limited to having another child. And so that like takes up a lot of creative capacity. When I'm pregnant, I'm just like super like, I don't even know, just like focusing on this like life growing in me. So I did that for a bit. And then recently my heart and my body and my soul have just been calling of like this message of, it's always been raising wild hearts. This has always been a term that I've used since probably my oldest was 2. And so the little whisper, I always talk about the whisper or the nudge from the universe. It was going like, hey. And then, I would meet somebody and we'd talk something, about parenting. And I'm like, oh, that's like my podcast. And they're like, oh, you have a podcast? I'm like, well, I do, but I'm like on a little break. So finally, I just re-aired it. I'm on episode 10. I'm about to publish this coming week an episode about postpartum health and my postpartum anxiety journey. And it's really, really fun. One of the best things in life for me is talking to people, connecting with people, like you said. I'm not really like a, hey, how's the weather kind of a gal. I'm kind of like, tell me your happiest childhood memory.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your childhood trauma. Like, how do you feel about your dad? Like, so I just like the psychology, the spirituality, parenthood, and then where they all intersect in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And I love when you said that, because you're out and about and you hear something and I have a podcast and people are like, what? You're a podcaster? It's like the most exciting job ever, I'll tell you.
It is.
And
oh
now
my
if
gosh.
you can only get paid for all of that excitement in the excitement of, money.
We will. It's coming, Sarah.
Totally. It's fantastic. Yeah. No, it's so great because number one, I think for me, podcasting gave me the chance to really, I was kind of in the same place. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for so long. I'd been homeschooling a son that could only do online school. He's really has challenging support needs. And so with that, I'm just this lady with a ponytail and sweatpants that has not much purpose going on. And I got on, and started my husband bought this sign and put it up behind me. And all of a sudden I was this host and I was this person again. And, and I didn't curl my hair today, but, getting ready and getting dressed, doing my makeup again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I still got this. Like, I still feel beautiful. I can still have my voice heard. I still have value. Oh my gosh. It was this whole new it was all a whole new Sarah emerging from that. And it was about 2 years ago that I started my podcast too. And just the opportunities and amazing connections. Sorry, I'm the crier. The amazing connections that I get from being able to do this. And like, how could this have passed me by for so long? Number one, like, how did I not become a radio host or something way back in the day?
Right.
And I absolutely love this. But now we can get here. Now we can tell our stories. We can hear other people's stories. We can teach and learn. And it is just like a whole beautiful, mess of everything, isn't it?
Yeah. And gosh, thank you for sharing that. I feel all of that. I feel so much of that, Sarah. And two, like, we have a tendency as mothers, I do, toward martyrdom. One of the models that I was shown growing up was that you sacrifice and and it hurts, but it's a sacrifice and it's for, the good of your family. And, you have a tendency to possibly lose yourself. And so my one piece of advice, when I found myself lost, 6 months into motherhood, it's find your soul's calling. And if that sounds super big, because it is big, it's those little breadcrumbs that have come up along the way. What did you love to do when you were a kid? What do you lose track of time doing? What makes you feel so overjoyed? When do you get goosebumps? So follow these breadcrumbs and do one little thing every day that you feel passionate about. And that's how our cups are going to get filled. And that's how we're going to be able to, in turn, show up and love on the people we love on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it really resonates, and it's a ripple effect out to the family of whatever your mindset is. And remember that if you are retelling a negative story over and over and over, that's all you're doing is retelling and reliving that story. If you retell or you tell the existence that you want to live, oh, I can't wait to walk around that lake, and whatever, see a deer. Be careful with the deer one though, folks, because there was a time, I'm going to tell a funny little story that I had been manifesting. I just want to live where I can see deer. I want to live where I can wake up and see deer every day. Just want to wake up and see deer. I live in the suburbs of Salt Lake City. Okay. And guess what I woke up to find in my circle one morning?
Of course, a deer.
A deer. And I was like, no, that's not how it was supposed to go. But the universe listened.
That's not what I meant. It brought the deer to you.
Oh, isn't that funny?
That's great. It makes me think of one of my favorite books. My husband and I read it over and over and over again. It's called The Alchemist. And it's just this beautiful journey of this boy leaning into self-discovery. And I won't give any spoilers, but it is a journey of self-discovery. And in a nutshell, it's like the gold is like where you are. Like the gold is in the present moment. Like we don't go out looking, it's here, and it's where we are. So, we have so many opportunities as, mothers and members of our family to show up in presence. And there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And for me, I'm not sleeping much of those right now. I don't know if I ever will be again. But so for me, let's call it 60,000 seconds to really come back to center.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What are you planning in the future? What do you got on your plate, girl?
I like that. It's funny because in the trailer episode of my podcast, I said, someone once wise said that if you fail to plan, then you don't know where you're going. Or like, if you don't have a goal in mind, then you'll never get there. And I said, and I have no idea where we're going this season. So there's that. And so sometimes I'm an Aquarius. I love freedom. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of a girl. I'm like emotional. I like to just like go with the flow, like literally of life. And I'm striving to do that in a lot of ways too. And so, I just am kind of taking those opportunities as they come. I'm really trying to be open and aware of, heartfelt and heart-centered opportunities. It's interesting. I may end up back in the homeschooling seat someday. And also like really my ultimate thing, like I talk about healing a lot, and it's one of the things that I talk about in my intro. And I was on a walk yesterday and I was thinking like healing, this is such an obscure word. Like, what do we mean by healing? And there's all these different areas of our lives. There's our relationships. There's our romantic partner, if we haven't. There's our children. There's our career, our spirituality, and there's more too, right? And so healing is when we bring one of those categories of life back into alignment. So, when things feel off, we kind of have an opportunity to like, twist the levers and turn the knobs and, dust under the rugs and stuff. And that's like what healing is. And so I continue on to, I'm going to continue to talk about that probably for as long as I live. It's something that I'm super passionate about. So yeah, gosh, what else? I'm just really leaning into, there are so many possibilities for the podcast, for the blog, for my family. Like I'm just kind of leaning into here I am and let's see where it'll go.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned something a little while ago, so I want to touch back on that because now I want to know. Tell me something that gives you goosebumps.
Oh, truth. And that's like so obscure. But so, when I'm in a quiet moment or even a noisy moment, like one time my girls, I lump them together so much, but my older two, they're really close in age. They're very much like twins and they're so different. But one time when they were little, like 2 and 4, they were jumping on the bed in their room and they brought all their stuffed animals out, like, hundreds of stuffed animals. And they were just jumping, like so joyous and like filled with just this pure life essence, just pure joy. And they were jumping into the stuffed animals. They were climbing back up and jumping in this little like toddler, butt with their little diaper on. Like, oh, I just, they're so cute. And I sat there on the floor and I was so present and in awe of their natural ability to just be.
Enjoy
and to just
themselves.
enjoy and to just find like the magic in the moments between the moments. We weren't at like a theme park.
Yeah.
We weren't out to dinner. We weren't like, it wasn't Christmas. It was just like a Tuesday morning at 9:30. I was tired as hell. I was bags under my eyes. I probably hadn't showered or brushed my teeth. And I watched them do it and I had tears streaming down from my eyes. And they're like, "What's wrong, Mama? What's wrong?" And I said, I didn't have an opportunity to do this when I was a kid. I didn't have this. I didn't know about this, or I don't remember it. Right.
Yeah.
And they just were like, "Oh, okay." And they went on to jumping. And that moment gave me goosebumps. And the moments in between the moments are typically when I get the goosebumps, the truth moments, the love moments, the present moments.
I love that. I'm so, so glad that we connected. And
Me too.
I really hope we can stay in touch. And I'd love to invite you back on because you're just brilliant and wonderful. So let's make it so.
Thank you so much. And I just want to tell you that that's your reflection coming back at you, Sarah.
Oh,
so you're seeing your brilliance and your wonderful nature too. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Before we go, tell us where we can go to find you, support you.
Yeah. So Instagram at Raising Wild Hearts. That's the best place right now. I'm posting when I, publish a new episode, and that's kind of where I'm hanging out these days.
Your spot. Okay, we'll do it. We'll go to the Instagram playground and check that out. Thank you so much again for being here. And I really look forward to staying in touch.
Amazing. Me too. Thank you so much.